Good afternoon, everybody. And as we all know that cardiovascular disease causing 26% of death in India among all the diseases. So today we will decode the heartbeat by using the signal processing techniques in ECG. So my name is Aditya Kushola, and first, and my friend Abhishek will tell you about how the ECG signal works. And before that, I want to introduce some table of content which we will include in these slides. From introduction to ECG, we will learn some approaches of machine learning that how we can use this to analyze our ECG, and by interpreting that, we can make some models so that we can help the humanity. And over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Aditya. Uh, Let me introduce you to the electrocardiography. Actually, ECG records the heartbeat, heart electrical activity through electrodes on the chest, limbs, or back, capturing muscle contraction and converting them to a graph that is called as electrocardiogram, a visual representation of the heartbeat. Uh, these are the advantages of the ECG. It's a non-invasive process, and it's a better diagnostic tool and a better monitoring tool also. Actually, non-invasive, painless, and non-invasive, offering a quick and accurate look into the heart's electrical activity, and it can diagnose many heart conditions like arrhythmias and heart attack and CAD and all. It can also monitor the heart conditions also. So let's understand the electrical activity of the heart through the diagram. Here we can see four chambers of the heart. In the right atrium, there are two nodes, which one node, that is SA node, sinoatrial node, which originate the pace of the heart, um, also known as the pacemaker, and through the internodal through the internodal pathway, it connects to the AV node, through which the pace set to whole of the heart through various branches and fibers. Uh, After the signal after reaching to the AV node through which is generated through the SA node, conducted to the whole of the heart, or you can say ventricle, through the right and left bundle branches, and then then Purkinje fibers finally to the whole of, to the all of the cells of the heart, cardiac cells. Here is the diagram of the heart, which uh, uh, in which you can see the different waveform for each of the specialized cells, like the waveform of the sinus atrial node or the AV node, then Purkinje fibers and all, which consists the ECG. So these are the nodes which I have explained, and then let's understand the physiological basis of the ECG signal. So here you can see the ECG, in which different waves and complexes are there. First of all, we are looking into the P wave. P wave, which occurs after atrial depolation, that is atrial systole, and then a isoelectric line is there, and then after that a QRS complex is formed, and which form after the ventricular depolarization, and then the T wave, which forms after the which is formed after the ventricular repolation. Here you can see different segments and intervals. The main difference between the segment and an interval is that the segment start from the end of the wave, and the interval start from the beginning of the wave. You can see here the PR interval and PR segment. So accordingly, there are segments and intervals also there. So here's the let's move into the overview of these, how we are process the ECG data. So when we have a raw data, so first of all we have to pre-process it. Pre-process means noise and artifact removal. So like muscle tremors, power line interferences, There are so many things in noises, and then we have to extract the features like there are statistical features, and also there are other features like duration of the wave, amplitude of the wave, morphology of different waveforms, which I have explained here, and then we have to classify them into the different categories so that we can distinguish the the normal ECG to the disease condition. So here you can see the graph before the noise reduction and after the noise reduction. So these are the steps of the noise reduction and artifact removal. First, first step is filtering out. So actually in the filtering step, we eliminate the unwanted frequencies like power line noises, which enhances the ECG clarity for accurate analysis. Then second step is averaging. In averaging, we do combine the multiple recordings to reduce noise, so that we can get a smoother and more reliable ECG signal. Then adaptive noise cancellation is there, which isolate and remove the noise using a reference signal. And then a baseline wander removal, which removes low frequency drifts which caused by breathing or movement during the ECG measurement. And the last step of the noise reduction is wavelet transform analysis, in which we decomposes the say, ECG signal into different frequency bands to identify and remove specific noises components more precisely. And then here you can see different types of arrhythmias, uh, um, which can be identified through the different waveforms um, that can be processed through the signal processing. And you can see here different types of arrhythmias. First is atrial fibrillation and paroxysmal atrial tachycardia. You can differentiate it according to the different waveforms, and we measure them after the applying machine learning algorithm. Sorry, 2 minutes more. Okay, sir. Let's take over to the Aditya.
Now let's understand that how machine learning model works. So first of all, we have already learned about the convolution in a biomedical signal processing. So what's actually convolution is? Just imagine that we are having a filter and we are just sliding over it to all the data points, and after sliding over, we get the relationships between the different features. For example, as you can see here, we have the P wave. It's having a particular frequency. So after when we were sliding our filter, it gets the P wave and it gets the frequency that how much frequency P wave is showing. So when it's sliding over, it's collect that data, and on that data we start building our model. This is actually just the interface to show that how a convolutional neural network works. First of all, we have an input here where we have all the features which we extract from the raw data, and after that we make some hidden layers that actually where mathematics lies. And in the C, we already know that convolution is just a mathematical formula which we apply on the hidden layers so that we can find the relationship between the different features and how they are changing over time. So here we have the output here. For an example, if you want to just classify that, if we just want to classify the difference that from the ECG data, that if a person has done exercise or not. So for that we can create okay. So this is just the overview of that how CNN model works, and here are some clinical applications. Our objective to make these slides that, as we all know that 26% of all deaths are caused due to the cardiovascular diseases. So and here is the conclusion that we can use the AI tools and the machine learning models so that we can we can improve the quality of personalized health, and everyone can get the medicine or by using these tools. Thank you so much. Go to the diagram of the
These are the references.
ठीक है, ठीक
And thank you.
है। इसमें जो हार्ट का diagram, how does ठीक है, how does the blood ये heart collect the blood from the body? So there are actually, this is the right ventricles, and when this one is the right ventricle, right atrium, right atrium, left atrium, and right ventricle and left ventricle. Here first we have this passage note. When the I am just telling how the heart collects the blood from the human body. So how the heart collects the blood? The tissues names. आप बोलो ना, आप क्यों बता रहे हो? Sir, there are this is the vena cava. This part is what is that? This is vena cava. From how many vena cavas are there? There are, sir, two vena cava. What are the names? Sir, what are the names? Superior and inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Interior. Post. Actually, how does the heart? How does the blood from the heart muscles is collected? पहला वाला तो उसने बता दिया। Sir, this is the aorta. From aorta तो blood comes to the body. Blood from the myocardium, how it is collected into the heart. उसको भी तो oxygenation चाहिए ना? How it is collected? Where it is collected? Sir, I forgot the name of that muscle which is present. Muscle कहाँ से? नहीं, sir, tissue-like structure. For tissue-like structure है नहीं.
So there is a coronary circulation. So coronary circulation होता है पूरे coronary artery के through.
So where it drains? Right atrium.
हाँ, right atrium sir, right atrium. Through the, yes sir, through the eustachian tube, eustachian valve.
Where is here?
Yes sir, coronary artery.
Coronary artery कहाँ पे? Drain कहाँ पे होता है? Heart में.
Heart to right atrium.
That is the exception.
One second.
आप बताओ, ये ऊपर जो तीन ये दिख रहे हैं वो क्या है? रेड है ना? ऊपर तीन दिख रहे हैं ना? वो क्या है? So actually this is like ये जो बेंड है इसको क्या बोलते हैं? बेंड आ रहा है ना, यू शेप, क्या बोलते हैं? उसको क्या बोलते हैं? उसका स्पेसिफिक ये है
Aortic arc बोलते हैं, जिसमें तीन aortic arc, जिसमें से तीन
आर्क ऑफ आर्ट।
हाँ,
वो तीन क्या है?
वो सर एक ब्रैकियल आर्टरी है और दो थोरेसिक आर्टरी, लेफ्ट एंड राइट थोरेसिक आर्टरी।
ओके, कम नेक्स्ट आप बताओ। यस, एट्रियल डिपोलराइजेशन है, वेंट्रिकुलर डिपोलराइजेशन है, वेंट्रिकुलर डिपोलराइजेशन है। व्हेयर इज एट्रियल डिपोलराइजेशन? Atrial repolarization. So actually it happens when it starts from the when ऐसे में लिखा हुआ है कहाँ पे है, वो छोड़ दो, आप यहाँ पे बताओ यहाँ पे क्या होता है। It actually starts from here. It starts आप लिख के रखे हो ventricular depolarization. But सर ये इसकी वजह से QRS complex की वजह से जाता है कि ventricular जो ventricular depolarization का वो बहुत मतलब स्पीड होता है, जैसे वो वेग जो भी नहीं आता स्पीड से होता है, लाइक नहीं सर, you explain in terms of the frequency.
ये सब फ्रीक्वेंसी
repolarization.
हाँ,
Why you are not able to see the atrial?
एक्चुअली सर एट्रियल रिपोलराइजेशन वो क्या होता है कि जब अट्रियम से वेंट्रिकल की तरफ सिग्नल आता है तो जो वेंट्रिकल वाला डिपोलेशन है और डिपोलेशन वो अपोजिट डायरेक्शंस में है, मतलब डिपोलेशन ऐसे सिग्नल जाएगा और डिपोलेशन ऐसे जाएगा। लेकिन अट्रिया के केस में क्या होता है, सिग्नल एक ही डायरेक्शन में जाता है, रिपोलेशन वाले भी, इसलिए ये रिकॉर्ड नहीं कर पाता। तो शिवारमन सर ने एक टेक्निक बनाई थी, तो उससे टी ए वेव।
वो तो अलग बात है, आप यहाँ पे बताओ ना, you are presenting your thing. Why we are not able to see the actual polarization? What is happening?
सर वो इसके जो इसका जो क्यू आर एस कॉम्प्लेक्स का जो फ्रीक्वेंसी है वो ज़्यादा है, उसकी वजह से वो कैप्चर नहीं कर पाता है उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी, टी ए वेव की फ्रीक्वेंसी,
चार्जर नहीं कर पाता मतलब what do you mean by capture?
रिपोलेशन ऑफ द
कैप्चर तो होगा सर, जो चार्जेस लो। So what happens if ventricular repolarization का अगर potentially नहीं होता, so how does this QRS complex would have look like?
क्यू आर एस कॉम्प्लेक्स अगर वेंट्रिकुलर डिपोलेशन, रिपोलेशन या डिपोलेशन,
रिपोलराइजेशन अगर एट्रियल रिपोलराइजेशन अगर नहीं होता है, हाँ, मान लो इन hypothetical case that is not present, so how will the
अच्छा ठीक है,
QRS complex would have
पीक बढ़ जाती है सर इसकी, पीक बढ़ जाती है इसकी।
So what is happening basically?
हाँ ठीक है, वो सुपर पोजिशन।
Sir, actually it's like if there is no ventricular repolarization, then the peak ventricular repolarization or atrial repolarization. Sir, if there is no ventricular repolarization, depolarization, the peak will go right. Atrial repolarization नहीं हो रहा है in a hypothetical case. So how would your QRS complex look like? Sir, it will, the peak will go more upward. Sir, because what is happening? Here the due to the atrial repolarization, the signals from ventricular depolarization got suppressed a little bit. Electrical conductivity कैसा हो रहा है? Tell us that. Sir, sir, it's like atrial repolarization happening in a opposite direction to the
सुपरपोजिशन वाला चीज होता है, वो माइनस हो रहा है ना उसमें से।
next. How do you remove baseline matter?
So by applying filters.
कौन सा filter, क्या filter है? The low pass filter we can use. We will be using filter.
कौन सा low pass filter? Low.
So say ये हो जाएगा. What are the frequency component of baseline filter? ये baseline matter. Sir, in case of what is baseline matter?
Sorry sir, high pass filter. We use high pass filter.
उसको मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. What is the nature of the baseline matter? Nature baseline matter कैसा behave?
सर ब्रीदिंग की वजह से हो रहा है ना, मतलब ईसीजी के टाइम पे ब्रीदिंग या फिर मूवमेंट की वजह से हो, हाँ और भी रीजंस है, तो उसमें हम हाई पास फिल्टर लगा के हम रिमूव कर सकते हैं। क्योंकि
कैसा दिखता कैसा है? अगर बेसलाइन मेंटेन में आपका सिग्नल में रहेगा तो सिग्नल कैसा दिखेगा?
नॉइसी दिखेगा थोड़ा, मतलब।
So good evening everyone. Today I'm Salun Negi, and today I'm joined by my batchmate Anumita, and we will be presenting on the electrocardiogram, discussing its principle, signal processing and application, as well as comparing them with the EEG signal processing. This is the content outline of the subtopics that we are going to discuss today. So let's dive in. So electrocardiography captures the brain electrical signals by directly placing the electrodes on the cortex of the brain. Unlike EEG, it does require a surgical procedure in which the electrodes are placed deep inside the brain. Thus, it's a non-invasive process. So, but with a better accuracy. So, it provides a high spatial and temporal resolution for better brain activity monitoring, and thus it's more critical in a clinical setting. So, here is a comparison between the EEG and ECUG. So as we all know, the EEG is a non-invasive method and it's much convenient to perform but it captures a low amplitude signals, having a low spatial resolution. However, it's safe and comparatively safe and non-invasive. On the other hand, we have ECOG, which is an invasive method and records the electrical activity using the electrodes that are placed directly on the cortex of the brain. Thus, requires a surgical procedure, but it provides a higher spatial and temporal resolution, and it's much more preferable when you have to map the cortical brain activity. So, in order to understand the electrode placement, it's important to know the anatomy of the brain. It's broadly divided into three parts: the brainstem, cerebellum, and cerebrum. Cerebrum can be divided into two parts: the left and right hemisphere. The hemisphere, the top layer of the hemisphere is known as the cortex, and receives the sensory information from the sensory organs, and is divided into four lobes: the occipital, temporal, parietal, and the frontal. So Animata would be describing the electrode placements.
Placement of EEG electrode. The standard method is a 1020 system. 1020 system refers to the position of the electrode, and the position of the electrode for that case, the three reference point is used, anatomical reference point. They are Nasion, Inian and preauricle point, and the electrode side is the side of the electrodes are labeled with the combination of letter and the number. The letters denotes the brain area of the brain, and the numbers denotes the lateral positioning. Just that A for frontal, T for temporal, O for occipital, P for parietal, C for central, and Z for midline, that is zeroth position. Then the electrode ECOG electrodes. For ECOG electrodes, we all know that ECOG electrodes are surgically implanted on the cerebral cortex, and ECOG electrodes are of two types: subdural electrodes and depth electrodes. And subdural electrodes are further divided into two types: strips and grades. Subdural electrodes are placed on the cortical surfaces, and depth electrodes pierce through superficial layers into the deeper brain structure. These are the pictures of grid type and strip type electrodes. Electrodes are mainly 3 to 5 millimeter in diameter, and made up of MRI compatible material. For intraoperative ECOG, larger grids covers lateral surfaces for better resolution. And now electrical tracing for ECOG and EEG. Here for EEG there are waves, characteristic waves are there: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And the ECOG waves have covers the broader frequency as compared to EEG waves. That gives a detailed monitoring for localizing the brain activity. Now the procedure of ECOG. The patient is first the patient is assessed, and preoperative imaging technique is done. After that, a section of skull is removed to expose the brain, and then electrodes are placed directly on the cortical surface. After that, the brain activity is monitored in real time to capture electrical signals. Then the electrical stimulation may be applied to map functional areas. After that, the recorded data is analyzed to identify the epileptic foci, and after that the procedure have the electrodes are carefully removed, and the skull is replaced, and the surgical site is closed. The patient is monitored, and the neurological assessments are conducted to ensure the recovery, and the data is reviewed by the clinicians for surgical planning and further treatment planning. Now over to Saloni.
So this diagram outlines the signal processing that is conducted during the ECG raw data acquisition to the ultimate process data. So first, the raw data is collected by continuous monitoring of the patients, followed by the pre-processing where the removal of artifacts and other noises is performed. Then the feature extraction set, different wavelength forms are extracted depending on the bandwidth frequency of the different waves, followed by dimensionality reduction technique, particularly PCA, followed by pattern recognition and the functional and connectivity brain network analysis. This part is particularly specific in developing the BCI interfaces, where there is a need to understand the cortical simulation, how does the cortical simulation happens and all. And based on that, there's specific application specific processing on the bandwidth frequency that they would select. That is done, and ultimately the visualization step is done. So these are the clinical research aspects of this. It's used in epilepsy monitoring, and it can also be used in the patient safety aspects for monitoring the after discharges during the cortical stimulation. It also helps in identifying the amplitudes of these, helps in identifying the frequency bands that can carry substantial information about the task-related activity, and can also reveal the functional connectivity and resolve finer tasks related to the spatial temporal dynamics that are used in the BCI interfaces. These are the following advantages that we have discussed. Here we have the BCI sensors. We have different types of mountings, like the invasive ones is the IM, semi-invasives, and the non-invasive types. So this is one of the applications. Like, this was published in for the cortical implants of neuroprosthesis. Here we have a diagram for the BCI interface that they have developed, and here the diagram illustrates the use of a BMI, which sources the information from the brain motor interface and bypasses the spinal cord injury in order to aid for the motor function of the limb prosthetic. And in the figure B, they have developed a closed loop system uh, for the deep brain's simulation in using the local field potentials to aid in the movement.
And the limitations are, as we said earlier, that ECOG is an invasive procedure and it's typically cover only specific region of the cortex, potentially missing broader brain activity. These are our references. Thank you.
Sorry, yes,
The signal that you have shown you already looks like a noisy signal. So how do you define or assess whether the signal what you are having after pre-processing your noise has been removed?
sorry, sir.
If you see the signal over here, it
Yes, sir.
looks like a noise, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, after the pre-processing, what you are doing with the mobile?
Sir, just
Keep your mobile. After the pre-processing is done, so how do you ascertain that the noises have been removed and whatever the signal you are getting, that is near the what do you call it? It is the signal with the noise which has been removed.
So, sir, from what I did understand, they do have to guide electrodes as well. Guide electrodes while taking the ECOG, they do have guide electrodes.
No, that is okay. When you are taking the
Yeah.
brain signals,
Mm.
you see the nature of the curve.
Hmm.
It looks like itself it is a noise, right? Now, since it looks like a noise, how do you ascertain that after the pre-processing the noise has been removed? Because we cannot go by our
Yes.
visual perception, right?
Yes, sir.
We have to have some tools which must assist us to understand whether the signal has been denoised or not in a proper way. So how do we do that?
So typically in ECOG, the frequency wavelengths that we get are much more higher compared to that of the EEG. That's why there is a better filtering process for the noise as in ECOG as compared to the EEG signals.
That's fine, but
Yeah,
still, so how do you ascertain? I am talking about
in
you are
general
taking
process.
ECOG,
Yes.
but how do you ascertain whether the signal what you have pre-processed, whether it is a
True
denoised
signal.
signal or
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Do you know or not?
Yeah.
Do you know? Then again, look into the process data.
Hmm. So
Is
this
that
process data is particular for a section of the segment. Yeah.
does it look like a EEG or ECOG signal?
So that is an ECOG signal for a seizure patient. That's why it has a lot of.
So this is
Yeah.
the thing. If you see your raw data, you are showing it in a different way. Over there, you are showing it in a different scale or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it does not match. Right?
Yes, sir. I will check it.
Okay. Talking of, आपको पता है?
No, sir.
Okay. Now talking of your MRI. You go to the slide where you
So
wrote something about the
procedure.
electrodes. Go to the slide. Ah. Next.
Next. No.
Ah. The diameter made up of MRI compatible stainless steel or platinum.
So, good evening everyone. This is Supreet Das. So, we might all have heard about Parkinson's disease. So, I'm going to tell you a feature about Parkinson's disease, and it's a very fluctuating disease. There is actually two kinds of fluctuations that take place. One is bradykinesia and the other is akinesia. And to detect these fluctuations, we need a very advanced kind of a sensor. So today we are going to talk about it. So our topic is medical IoT, wearable sensors and management of Parkinson's disease. So let's move on to the outline of the presentation. Okay. So first we are going to know what is actually medical IoT. So the full form of IoT is Internet of Things. And then we will get to the part where we would find out more about Parkinson's disease. We will also know what is basically a wearable sensor and what is the need of a wearable sensor. Then we will get on to the key components of the wearable sensor. Then we will go, then we'll find out how the data is collected by it and how it provides real-time feedback to the applications and the cloud software or to the healthcare providers or wherever it is needed. And then we get on to an example. This is the Media One. It is a device which basically is an application of this technology. So then we get on to the challenges and the limitations that this device or this technology provides, and then we'll have a conclusion and future directions and then the references. Okay. So let's move on to what is medical IoT. So medical IoT, Internet of Things, is actually a group of devices or application that connects to medical devices or applications. Like from a medical device which analyzes or detects, not analyzes, basically detects the healthcare information or healthcare signals and it transfers it to another application or medical or device or like a computer network or a computer network or a cloud which where it is stored and analyzed and also this provides so this is important why we get on to the fact get on to the point we get on to the part where we will see why it is important like it is important because it can provide like the remote detection from the hospital to where the patient is. Suppose the patient cannot travel from their home to the hospital. So wearable, this medical IoT provides the opportunity for detection of the information from the hospital to the patient from where the patient is to the hospital. So it's like remote sensing is possible there. And it also provides a large amount of data which helps the caregivers to take a larger perspective on the which helps the caregivers to take 72 minutes. Okay. So it helps the caregivers have a larger perspective on the healthcare information and hence they can take better decisions. Okay. So now we'll move on to what Parkinson's disease is and everything.
Hello everyone. So before proceeding to know what a wearable device does in management of Parkinson's disease, let us first know what Parkinson's disease is. So Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder characterized by motor symptoms like tremor, rigidity, and bradykinesia. It's basically associated with movements. Why Parkinson disease occurs? It occurs because when neurons in an area of the brain called as the syn- synesthesia nigra in the basal ganglia region. When the neurons in that region become impaired or die, these neurons are responsible for uh, producing certain neurotransmitters, and when these neurons die, the neurotransmitters aren't produced anymore, and this leads to the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Uh, Substantia nigra. The common motor-related symptoms include slowed movements, tremor while muscles are at rest, rigidity or stiffness, then blinking less often than usual, trouble swallowing, then unstable posture or walking gait. Then proceeding to what is the need of a wearable sensor. So Parkinson disease is a very common age-related disorder. It ranks second amongst all the age-related disorders worldwide. Experts say that it affects at least 1% of people over age 60 worldwide. So wearable sensors are an essential tool for management of Parkinson's disease in the following ways. Number one is continuous monitoring of symptoms. As we know that Parkinson's disease is a very fluctuating type of disorder, so the symptoms vary throughout the day. So if there is a sensor in the hand of the patient, the symptoms can be recorded. The intensity of the symptoms can be recorded throughout the day, and so there can be continuous monitoring. Then there's objective symptom measurement. Then data for then we can have data for personalized treatment or adjustments for the patient, and then we can detect early symptom changes as well. So overall, you with the help of these wearable sensors, they contribute to better diagnosis and treatment of patients have suffering from Parkinson's disorder. Then coming to key components of a wearable sensor. The key components include number one, sensor unit. The sensor unit is the core component of a wearable sensor. It is responsible for detecting physiological signals. The sensor unit is mainly composed of accelerometer or gyroscopes. Then another key component is the microcontroller or processor. It is responsible for processing the raw data from the sensor, and it also pre-processes it before going to the next step. Some microcontroller that are used in developing these wearable sensors are Arduino Nano 33BLE Sense and Microchip SAMD21. Then there's of course power source. The power source is typically a small rechargeable battery, and it powers the entire device. Then there are memory components. It is basically for storage of the data. They are basically flash memory, NOR and NAND or EEPROM are used for memory component. Then communication module is there for transferring data wirelessly from that wearable sensor device to any external device like smartphone or computer. Usually this is done through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or near-field communication. Then there's signal conditioning unit. It consists of amplifier, filters, and analog to digital converter. Then enclosure is basically casing that holds all the components together. Now Supreet will continue with the presentation.
Okay, so now we move on to the data collection and real-time feedback for Parkinson's management. Predominantly the wrist-worn wearable devices are basically very lightweight and they are just 35 to 40 grams around, and they have this ambient frequency of 50 hertz. Yeah, and they also use a 3-axis accelerometer. I'll get on to what is an accelerometer. Accelerometer can actually detect the movement in all the three directions, like accelerating movements. And so this is basically important because of the tremors that the Parkinson's disease, the patient affected by Parkinson's disease is facing. And yeah, and the 50 hertz sampling frequency helps in the detailed, it helps in capturing the detailed motor activity. So the tremors are captured through the sensor vibration patterns and also the bradykinesia, that is the slow movement of the patient, that is also detected by these wearable sensors. So basically non-motor symptoms are also detected by the sensor. And yeah, so additionally, the physically activity levels, like if the patient, like if sudden vibration or tremor happens in the patient, so that is detected by this sensor and the data is collected. And also the sleep patterns and their management, and how the tremors are fluctuating through the sleep patterns, that is the non-motor symptoms that are also detected. And after that, the data is transmitted and stored and analyzed in the cloud. Yes, sir. Okay. So then we'll get to the real time feedback mechanism. So what is real time feedback? Real time feedback is like at that instance only the information is carried from the patient to the healthcare givers. So immediate symptom tracking, that is continuous monitoring. Yeah. Okay.
So one of the example of a wearable device is challenges and limitations.
Okay, so there are a few challenges, sir, only one time. So there are a few challenges and limitations. That is it. Why it is because of the fluctuating nature of this disease. There is data inaccuracy. Sometimes the communication module has a problem, like the Wi-Fi has some problem from remote sensing, and there is also a battery life because it has a very sensitive battery. So that is also a problem. Then there is comfort problems because the severely affected patient faces it, and there are clinical limitations as well, like privacy, and sometimes the data interpretation is long, and this can only detect the movement and not the mood changes, and memory issues also it cannot detect. So these are the challenges and limitations to
Overall,
yeah.
wearable devices have the potential to contribute significantly to the care of people living with Parkinson's disease for vast majority of devices. Yet the potential has still to be fully realized. There has been an exponential growth over the past 5 years, but it has there consensus guidelines are required to clarify key areas for researchers and allow common standards when using wearable technology in diagnosis, monitoring, and treatment of Parkinson's disease. Well, there are more than 40 symptoms associated with this disease, but most devices are able to focus on only a handful of the symptoms. So, more research is required on this field.
Like in this only the movement is captured and not anything else. Like memory changes also happen, mood changes also happen. That is
So,
not.
these are our references, and thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
The main problem of the presentation is that if you look, you started with medical economic things. In the whole presentation, I did not find anything.
So
I didn't find anything.
so the data is collected and transferred to the cloud and stored there.
When was प्रैक्टिकल में वो गाइड एक्चुअली हमने आपका थ्री रेजिस्टर Hello class, my name is Rahul and this is my partner. नहीं देखिए प्रेजेंट देखिए ये टाइटल कहाँ पे रहता है प्रेजेंटेड बाय टाइटल कहाँ पे रहता है ऊपर रहता है नीचे रहता है ऊपर रहता है आपका इलेक्ट्रिकल लोगो बहुत बड़ा हो गया मेडिकल का नाम नहीं बड़ा हो गया ये भी उल्टा होता है टाइटल बड़ा होता है लोगो वगैरह ये छोटा होता है Hello class, my name is Rahul. Today I am presenting the robotics for assisted application. A real and imaginary machine that is controlled by a computer and is often made to look like a human or animal. Any machine that can do the work of person and that work automatically or is controlled by computer. This is the machine. Why robotics needed? Because of the speed, efficiency. It is work in the dangerous temperature and can repeat a task and can do work with accuracy. The history of robotics. The early 60s to 80s, initially development of telemanipulation and exoskeleton system. First robotic surgery in done by 1985 with Arthrobot, developer surgical robots. Introduction of Da Vinci surgical system for laparoscopic surgery. The expansion into rehabilitation and assisted living. 2000 present use of robots for physical therapy, daily living support, and companionship. Current and future directions. Advancement in AI and machine learning are
enhancing robotics capabilities. The journey of robotics in assisted application and transform our basic prototype to sophisticated system, improving healthcare and quality of life. The first robotic surgery. The first recorded robotic surgery was performed in 1983 in British Columbia using Earth Robot. The Earth Robot was a voice-controlled robot designed to assist with orthopedic procedure. It could perform tasks such as selecting and passing the specialist equipment, positioning patient limbs, and repeating requests from doctors. We have various type of robots. This this uh, this is the list of them. First is Vestros Giraffe. This type of robot is used to enable the elderly communication with outside world. Its remote control and its wheels, a camera and monitor. Athon Thug is an automated system that allow a facility to move supplies such as medication, lines, and food from one place to another. And user can attach the system to the variety of hospitals cards to transfer supplies, and it can be employed for a variety of applications. Bastix is a small robotic arm with a spoon of the end, and the arm can easily maneuvered, and the user can independently control the spoon movement on a plate to choose what and when to eat. Cosmobot. Doctor use Cosmobot to enhance the therapy of development disabled child between 5 to 12 years. Cosmobot is prototype robot designed to treat children with a autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, muscular apraxia, neurodevelopmental disorder, and the language development disorders. Microbots, an assortment of free-roaming robots that carry out precise, delicate tasks inside the human body. Its sources are external electromagnetic coil and it uses magnetic field gradient as a steer mechanism. Anybot provide a type of emerging telepresence, meaning instead of focusing merely on audio and video communications, the Anybot robot allow for movement controlled by a robot. Sing, robotic for assistant applications. Robotics for assisted application. So electrical engineer.
चल चल मैं अभी आपको मिला दूं। एक हफ्ते का टाइम मिला था ना। ये कल भी प्रेजेंटेशन करो और भी कुछ नहीं, कल ही बैठ जाते हैं लोगों के साथ। वो किशोर ये हमारा प्रतीक का प्रेजेंटेशन इतना अच्छा नहीं था, बट स्टिल दे ट्राई टू से समथिंग। क्या नंबर देंगे इसका?
Now there is a robot for deaf and blind. This is a Dexter, which is a robotic hand. This converts hand movement into ASCII values, and so we don't need a translator for translator. This can automatically does the job. Uh, then we have various prosthetics, limb prosthetic, legs for
What is the difference between orthotics and prosthetics?
uh, uh, so orthotics.
What is the difference between orthotics and prosthetics?
Um, mm, is, orthotics is skeletal-muscular organ muscles पे काम करते हैं.
ये नहीं
So,
आपको निकालना है। पता है आपको क्या विषय को? What is the difference between orthotics and prosthetics? Orthosis, prosthesis.
So one of them would involve the use of the heavy muscle feedback response while in
Orthotics is more for corrective treatment than prosthetics is substituting for leg which is not present. Not only any organ, any muscular area is not present. Orthosis or orthotics, they are the devices which helps in supporting the function. जैसे आपका अभी 2-3 साल पहले ये आया था इंडियन आर्मी के लिए, they made some assistive devices which will help them to carry larger load, right? So that is the orthotic, that is helping. लेकिन if you are having this prosthesis, physical limb cutting, so you are replacing that original limb with this one. So it may be implant also, जैसे hip prosthesis. ठीक है? That is a process. You are implanting that and replacing the hip joint. You have the hip prosthesis. It depends. When you are replacing something with any device, whether implantable or outside, so that is prosthetic. And in general, it is called prosthesis. Fix जब हो जाएगा वो device हो गया.
so if you take EMG signals.
चलो आगे क्या है देख लेते हैं.
Sir, then we have a medical robot in surgery. Here we have
अच्छा topic था. What?
here Da Vinci's surgical
Sure,
robot.
sure. Please share the PPTs among yourselves. Questions and बोलो. जो जो बोला गया है, जो क्वेश्चन है, go through them.